This is Real News Media TV, coverage you can trust. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates. Government to return Goldings' US $10,000 donation to assist the Ukraine students. The government is now taking steps to return funds that were donated by opposition leader Mark Golding in February to aid the return of the Jamaican students who were studying in Ukraine. A press release yesterday from the office of the Prime Minister said that the opposition accused the government of improper usage of the donation. Accordingly, the government has decided that the funds be returned to the leader of the opposition at the earliest to facilitate their use as best determined by him. According to the OPM, in Golding's public announcement on February 25, the leader of the opposition noted that the US $10,000 donation was to be used for transportation, food, and other necessities related to the repatriation of the students. On the basis of the decision of the opposition leader to disburse the funds through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, the ministry acted on the guidance of the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service in depositing the funds to its account as appropriations in aid for the intended purpose in keeping with the financial regulations of the Public Service of Jamaica, the OPM said. Prime Minister Wholeness had also donated US $15,000, which OPM said was deposited in the same account. It is to be further noted that the urgency of timing required that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs advance funds for the students' repatriation and care. The contributions by Mr. Golding and the Prime Minister covered only a portion of the aggregate cost for the successful execution of the repatriation exercise, the press release stated. In a recent letter from Mr. Golding, he now indicates that the funds ought instead to be distributed to each student towards his or her education cost. Notwithstanding his change of intention regarding the use of the funds, the communication accuses the government of improper usage of the donation. Accordingly, the government has decided that the funds be returned to the leader of the opposition at the earliest to facilitate their use as best determined by him. Spanish Town business community is still not back to normality. Members of the business community in Spanish Town, St. Catherine, say it will take a while for commercial activity to recover following the recent flare-up of violence. Dennis Robotham, president of the St. Catherine Chamber of Commerce, told the news that a high level of fear exists despite the state of emergency that has been declared in the entire parish. He said this fear is causing shoppers to continue staying away from the area, especially Cumberland Road, French Street, William Street, and Wellington Street, and this is affecting the bottom line of businesses. Where there was usually bustling business at 8 p.m., now by 5 p.m. it's almost a ghost town, Mr. Robotham said.
Consumers are fearful at this point in time to even come into the area. So that is affecting the bottom line where business is concerned. It is more noticeable in the Cumberland Road, French Street, William Street, Wellington Street areas. But the entire business district, in Spanish Town in particular, we have by the LOJ section where Klansmen operate, and they have the section where the Rwanda operate. Both sections are affected and businesses close earlier. I mean, normally on a Saturday, for example, 8 o'clock is still an activity going on in these areas. On Saturday, it's almost a ghost town. By 5 o'clock, everywhere is shut down.
Dr. Junior Headlam, a chairman of the St. Catherine Development Committee, said the work of the committee has also been affected by the upsurge in violence. He said that the gang violence has set back the underground community intervention, which normally takes place in the evenings and at night.
The Parish Development Committee certainly is the umbrella group for our community development communities and our development areas. And within the communities, the CDCs, which are the community development committees, they are the people on the ground. They're the ones who are seeking to partner with other agencies such as the Social Development Committee in community intervention work. When there's violence in the space, it hampers the ability of the people to function. A lot of what community groups do happen at night, they happen in the evenings. So even with the curfew, it does have an impact on the work of the committees. And remember too, these people are also, many of them are fearful, and they do not want to put themselves at undue risk when there is violence in the area. So it does have a significant negative impact on the work of community organizations like the PDC and so on.
No shortage of jet fuel in Kingston, says Energy Ministry. There is no shortage of jet fuel in Kingston, the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology is assuring, as it seeks to correct the erroneous information circulating on social media making such assertion. Earlier yesterday, a social media user made a post that stated a JetBlue flight had to return to the gate to get extra fuel after the stewardess announced that Kingston had no jet fuel. The ministry categorically states that at no point was there a shortage of jet fuel in Kingston or on the island, and that any information of this nature is incorrect, the Energy Ministry stated in a press release yesterday. The ministry, however, acknowledges that there was an equipment issue due to an airlock in the hydrant loading system at the Norman Manley International Airport, which interrupted fueling services for a short period. This was, however, resolved quickly without causing any disruption to air traffic. The ministry is assuring travelers and the aviation industry that there is adequate supply of jet fuel to service aircraft entering and leaving Jamaica's airspace. What we had was a technical difficulty at the Kingston airport. We did not run out of fuel and were able to supply all the airlines by 7 a.m. Any airline or anybody who said there was no fuel was incorrect. Chadwick Paul, Aviation Depot Supervisor attached to one of the country's main suppliers, Total Energies at the Norman Manley International Airport, told the news. He said JetBlue planes from John F. Kennedy and Fort Lauderdale arrived and departed Jamaica without any issues. The Energy Ministry is also encouraging individuals to be responsible when posting on social media, as well as to ensure that they are retrieving information from credible sources. Prime Minister Wholeness and the wife depart for Rwanda. Prime Minister Andrew Wholeness and his wife Juliet Wholeness departed the island yesterday evening to participate in the 26th Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Kigali, Rwanda. Minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for information, Robert Morgan, and others form part of the delegation. Under the theme Delivering a Common Future, Connecting, Innovating, Transforming, the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting is being held from June 20 to 25, where it will decide, among other things, the next Secretary General, for which Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith is a candidate. The Prime Minister will be away from the country from June 20 to June 27. Deputy Prime Minister Dr. Harris Chang, who is also Minister of National Security, will be in charge of the government during Wholeness's absence. Amid tension from bloodbath, Training Center appeals for support to show wayward youth a brighter future. Still on the edge, a week after the air-splitting sounds of gunfire in a deadly daylight attack shattered the peace in Spanish Town last week, even the sound of a motorbike driving by is enough to strike fear into traumatized people in the old capital. Leroy Anderson, principal of the Filippo Baptist Skills Training Center at the corner of Cumberland Road and William Street in the St. Catherine capital, admitted to the news that he is among those still shaken. The psychological turmoil is so great that even when he is home in his relatively peaceful Portmore community, miles away from the epicenter of the latest scenes of violence, he is startled by any sudden loud noise. Sometimes we use the word trauma, but I tell you, we underestimate it, Anderson said, noting that the ordeal has left him with a troubling spiritual sensation. Because when I heard the gunshots ring out this close, and you see people racing along, and you see a dead body, you have to call out to God. Motorbikes passing by his gate with a pop-pop constantly reminds him of the fatal attack claiming 3 lives last Tuesday. As a sense of dread blanketed Spanish Town in the wake of the incident, the Skills Training Center closed its doors for the 3 days last week and shifted classes to the virtual space as staff and the trainees remain panicked. It was sudden and unexpected. We were in our comfort zone doing what we do best, and then suddenly it was absolute mayhem, Anderson recalled. Based on the magnitude of the shooting and the outcome of what we saw then, we knew that we would have never been safe to open the next day, he said, adding that the car wash where one of 3 men were killed was just a short distance away from the school. Several trainees left their bags and other personal items at the school as they believed it was too cumbersome to take luggage into crowds of people desperately trying to find a public transportation to flee the space, despite WhatsApp messages and emails sent to students alerting them that classes would resume on location on Monday. Days after a state of emergency was declared in the parish, there was a low turnout. Only 3 of 16 students showed up for the housekeeping class yesterday, for example. Anderson said that the decision to return to face-to-face instruction was made for students to engage in practical examinations for the commercial food preparation, as the time spent online last week was used to cover theoretical elements. Fearful of being trapped in the space for too long, students began arriving for practicals earlier than normal in hopes of returning home early and to get off the still tense streets. Normally, what they would have done this morning would have taken more hours, and sometimes we are here 3 to 4 o'clock, but I can guarantee you we are going to be marking in the next hour, Anderson told the news at noon. We are proactive, utilizing our time skillfully, and we are weathering the storm, he added, noting that there is still some anxiety and skepticism among the students. The 30-year-old Filippo Baptist Skills Training Center, which provides NC-TVET Level 2 accreditations in commercial food preparation and housekeeping to persons 17 years and older, has remained a viable option for keeping young men off the streets. Administrators are pleading for more funding to be invested in institutions like this center to allow them to expand their reach and to play a role in channeling the youth towards a brighter future and away from a life of crime. We are saving some purses and handbags by training them, because when they are gainfully employed, they don't look at anybody's handbag or purse, said a housekeeping instructor. The impact of outlaws on the younger generation poses a hurdle to reform efforts, said Anderson. When you look at the vulnerability of these youngsters, it's just for them to pass a corner and a man say, "May have an iron for you that you can use," and them gone, you lose them. Right now we're walking through the space here and there are young men. It's like they are merchants of death, he said, pinned by the recruitment of young men with promising futures. As such, the center is trying to encourage young men to make better for themselves and their families the legal way. There is an urgent need for a consciousness among every citizen in Jamaica for us to say our country is in trouble and to change attitude and help where we can, said Yvonne Morris Walcott, chairman of the training center. She added that everyone should be more willing to take social responsibility in assisting displaced individuals in recovering a sense of normality through skill-building activities. We are people of faith, and when we pray we say, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." God is God and we don't dictate to God. He might deal with it, asserted Anderson, who remains hopeful for a full turnout by the end of the week. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates.